down into a small little nugget. Those intensives are very, very useful, and they're instantly actionable, which means you can profit almost instantly from your endeavor. So, highly, highly, highly recommend. Both are tremendous people, awesome humans, and I know I'm a better human because of them. So, I want to put that out there. Innovators Think Tank is having their app go live this weekend. That's huge, folks. So we want to make sure that we support them in whatever way we can, and download the app. Make sure you can kind of suss out any bugs for them ahead of time so that they can go out in public and shine like the stars that they are. um, Innovators Think Tank this weekend is going to be really cool. We have a lot of Pocket family here in our classrooms that are going to be doing their 30-second pitches or 60-second pitches. I'm sorry. Um, that's the next step, folks. You've built something. Now you've got to, let it loose out into the wild and let other people know about it. One of our teammates last night, if you look at her X feed, Masha did something freaking amazing. She created a streaming service for AI content, and it is really, really well done, incredibly well done. She knows the assignment, she got it done, and it's just really, really wonderful. It's a great example of what could be manifested, what can be created, what can be summoned, when you put your mind to it. She did a fantastic job. I see that Magna is here, AI John is here, Rutro is here this morning. Douglas, I don't see Wingman. I don't know you, friend, but thank you for being here. And of course, Dan has arrived. So we have almost, I think, the regular crew. We'll wait a little bit more just in case. I want to test some mics. I'm going to test Cash Money Kev first so that Alisher can continue to log in and make sure all of his equipment is up and running. And we'll make sure that that happens. Um, we're saving the speaker panels for our students. Please don't take offense or think that we don't love you to the moon and back. We do. And we love hearing your voices, especially. This is just a one and done class. We're trying to get her done, got her did, and distill down 3 or 4 hours from last night into a little tiny nugget. We're basically doing the cleanup crew post mortem, make sure that you have all the I's dotted and T's crossed and all the projects are finalized and awesome and filed away and getting ready and off your desk for next week, by the way. Next week is going to be a one-off project on Wednesday. We're not starting season 7. It's kind of like a little breather. So you're going to have a one and done kind of app or API kind of thing. Ross kind of explained a little bit. I was still kind of confused, to be honest, exactly what we're going to be doing, but I'm sure it's going to be fun. The boys get excited when they have new stuff to play with and want us to play with all of their cool toys in the sandbox. And then the following week, we'll start season 7. We have not announced what season 7 is going to be yet. I think that there's some finagling behind the scenes to make sure that they can get all of the appropriate tools for your digital backpack. So, hang tight. That announcement is incoming. We'll let them all work on it. See, Masha has arrived. We've already talked about Masha this morning and how absolutely stellar she is. What comes to mind has also arrived. So just giving a giant tackle hugs. Happy Thursday. Cash Money Kev, how's your mic, my friend? Did I forget anything?
I don't think you did, Sarah, and I hope you're having an amazing morning. Same goes to everybody else, and Alisher especially. I'm super excited. This is the season 6 finale. I can't believe we're already, through season 6, on to season 7 here soon, like Sarah mentioned. And I'm pretty excited. I will be at the one-off shoot class next week, and we will be creating an app using the AI Tutor API, which is going to be super insane, honestly. Guys, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get, ahead of everybody right now. And you can make some really cool stuff that could, change your life. And that's what it's all about with Ideas to Impact and AI builders, especially. Not to mention, everybody check out the AI builders post. I put it up in the Jumbotron from Alisher. Sharon and him will be doing a weekend boot camp. Be sure to check that out and see if you're interested. So yeah. Also, another little mini note. If you guys don't have AI Tutor, you're going to need it for the API class next Wednesday. And if you're interested in that, definitely use the ITT code to get 20% off and to help out a fellow student get their own subscription for free. We don't make any money off that. It's all for the students and to just help out people in need. Also, guys, if I know you've heard it probably a few times already if you've been in the classes, but for next season, if you want to save your cPanel, be sure you're signed up on AI Mastery. The link is up in the Jumbotron as well. I'm pretty sure Alisher will correct me if I'm wrong later, but I'm pretty sure the cutoff will be soon. If you'd like to keep your cPanel and save your information from this data from this past season, and you'd like to, export your project, and you're not saving the cPanel, be sure to have that all saved and exported. I see we have AI John coming up onto the stage too. I just want to shout out a couple of students, John and Masha. They were the guinea pigs last night, and they did a really good job. Especially, like Masha's entire project blew me away. John's tenacity was something to look up to. If anybody did not see week 1 through 6, John here has grown so much, and all the students as well. But John came up on stage every time he needed help, and I love that, man. I love that you took the class seriously, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I can't wait for season 7. Some last little opening notes from you guys. Be sure to check out the ITT website's courses section to keep an eye out for season 7 as well. Make sure you get into that immediately when it drops. And like Sarah mentioned, we do have the app launch on Saturday. So that's going to be super exciting. I hope everybody can be there to test it out. Let us know, and be sure to have your ITT profile all set up and ready to go on the website, because it will be transferred over into the app, and it's going to look super awesome and fancy, and have some goodies there as well for the early comers that made their accounts before the app launch. Besides all my opening notes, I think we covered it all. Alisher, I'll go over to you and give you a mic check, brother. How's your morning going?
It's going good. I'm just getting set up. Live stream should be up. And yeah, I guess let me go over a few things.
There you go.
I'm just getting my list ready. So number 1, AI Mastery and cPanel. Yeah, if you're not in AI Mastery, if you're not on that subscription tier in our community, we are going to be freezing the cPanels and probably clearing them out. We say it every season that we use cPanel, but we haven't done it yet technically. But I think this season we are going to do it. So I'm just giving you guys a heads up. If you're not in AI Mastery, I highly recommend, if you want to keep all your stuff from the previous seasons and you haven't signed up yet, I highly recommend you do. Otherwise, I'm just going to be backing everything up and clearing them out and freezing them. And then whenever is the next season that we use a cPanel, whether it's season 7, 8, or 10, we'll unfreeze them, so you guys don't have to re-sign up. Just because that server is getting quite large, so we do need to shrink it down a little bit. And yeah, if you want to keep it, you can join AI Mastery. If not, just know this season, if you just joined this season and you use cPanel, you have only used it to host your videos and your thumbnails. We did not use cPanel for anything else this season. Then the next Wednesday, we're not going to have Idea to Impact, but in the AI Mastery community, we are going to have like a private live stream where you can come in, you can join, and we'll be building something with the AI Tutor API. Something where you can either create your own AI tool or your own chatbot using our API. So everybody's going to get access to test out our completion API. And so, some of you have tested it out already, and I will definitely be there next Wednesday. So we'll build something fun. I'll come in with some sort of a template you guys can use and reuse. And maybe it'll even be SaaS. Maybe you'll even be able to connect your Stripe and accept payments with it. We'll see if I have time and how far I get. So yeah, next Wednesday, no idea to impact. We're not starting a new season yet, but we are having a live stream in AI Mastery that is educational, where you can learn development, something that's very similar to what we're doing right now, and continue your education. Then this Friday, me and Sharon are not going to have a live stream. You guys can enjoy the time with your families, enjoy the time with your loved ones, enjoy your Valentine's Day. And the following week, we are probably going to have some sort of a live stream, some sort of a space that is going to be educational, where we are building, because I have some ideas that I want to build out. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, me and Sharon are actually having a boot camp. So this is a boot camp where you'll come in if you have no knowledge whatsoever of coding, creating micro SaaS platforms. This is where we're kind of going to hold your hand through it and make sure that you have a platform by the end of the weekend that you can start accepting payments. It doesn't even have to be an AI platform. Maybe you just want a platform that's like a community. That's something like AI Mastery. Maybe you're just trying to build something that has a subscription paywall. So something for you guys to consider. Similar to what we did here, except it's going to be a lot more enterprise level. I have been working on a template and some of the things we've used in previous seasons that are a little bit more industry grade, where Stripe will work 100% of the time, and you don't have to bother coding together Stripe. You can just focus on actually realizing your product idea and what it's going to be, and then all the coding part, we're going to teach you how to use AI and get a great result every time. And of course, at the end, you're going to leave with a platform that will be live. So we are going to go fully through the Stripe setup. We'll make sure your Stripe account is verified, or you're on the way to get verified. We'll make sure you go live. We have like a whole day of just a checklist for us to do for when we're going live. Then the recordings. So I'll be posting something about the recordings for Idea to Impact seasons 1 through now. I'm going to make sure that this gets uploaded as soon as possible once we're done. And you'll have the replays of all the seasons. So if you want to go back during that week that you have off, see what you can create. A lot of those projects are still there, especially projects from season 1, projects from season 4. If you're in AI Mastery, you can go back in time, see all the links that have been posted. If you're in Slack, you can go back in time and see all the links posted. If you're in Slack, you can even go and add yourself to the channel for the previous season and kind of go back in time, see what people discussed, see what issues came up, and kind of learn yourself. The recordings are all there. I think season 2 through 6 is going to be the most complete recording. Season 1, we didn't really record as much. We haven't been to StreamYard yet. But if you guys want to view that, if you want to learn more, these are your resources available to learn more. And of course, us, TSI, Tech and Schools Initiative, we have private courses as well. And we're actually gearing up to have like a cohort of you guys, students, and spend almost like a college semester together, learning coding, learning how to put together a product, going live, updating, upkeep, maintenance, pretty much everything that we teach within the school and the college setting. We're going to bring in that to private education here on Next, on the Innovators Think Tank website. So we are soon going to have a semester-long cohort where you can learn. It's going to be at a set time, and you guys can come join. Some of the seasons, if you notice, we had Cisco curriculums. We're going to be bringing that back. Cisco has a lot of courses that we're going to be launching together and then building on top of that you guys can learn from and get industry-grade certification. So that's pretty much everything that's coming between, I guess, short term, next week, next month, and everything that's coming, I'll say, in the next half a year in terms of education. I personally don't know what season 7 will be yet. I know some of you guys had questions yesterday. I usually don't ask Ross. I try to wait So I have that kind of like figuring out as well. So I can kind of let you guys in on a thought process that will take you to a solution. But it'll be something great because every season we've kind of kept upping it and building something completely new. Okay, now let's actually get to what we did last night. I would say first, who remembers what we did last night? Let's see if you guys remember, if it fully settled in your memory, because it did just happen.
I choose John. I think John or Rutro. I'm going to choose them as folks to be the firing squad, firing, the targets, because they both finished their projects, and I think Masha could come up too, because I know for a fact that they're all, working on their thing. John, if you're able to speak, go through it again, because you did it last night. You were the last person, and you did the whole happy dance in the kitchen, and that muscle memory will help you out too, friend.
Well, thank you, and thank you to Alisher and Cash and you, Sarah, and Ross and everyone, and all my fellow students. Super amazing. Just really feel like I've accomplished something. So I can't thank you all enough. And yeah, so we went through GitHub and learned how to make sure that we updated a fork on GitHub. And because Ross gave us new fork updates, and then I pushed that into my GitHub desktop, which we made sure that I had the correct code for the back end for Stripe. Then we pushed all that into what is that? Vercel, and made sure that all the updates were correct. And then through Vercel, we oh, and I actually have the old thing showing up. But so we got it so the Stripe works, and I was able to get subscriptions on there. And in Vercel and in Mongo, I could see where the subscriptions are, and verify whether it was working or not. And so now the NetClick site is up and running and functional, and I have to go in and change the look of it so it's not similar to Moshe's site. I think that's correct.
Yeah,
I
so
can
that's
nutshell
actually.
it.
I would say that's perfect, and you perfectly described the workflow, right? So first we put together the project and everything our project consists of. Then we edit it in Visual Studio Code. So I think some of the questions yesterday were, well, how does this all flow, right? So Visual Studio Code you use for editing your project. Then GitHub you use for essentially storing your code, right? GitHub is the equivalent of Google Drive in this situation, where you store your code, except it's just very technical, right? It's Google Drive for developers. And then Vercel is the part that actually brings our website to life and puts it up online. So those are your three kind of major sectors where you're going to work. Then our project is made up of a specific framework, right? So I think for us, that framework is like a variation of what we used to call MERN. But except in this situation, it's Mongo, Next.js, and TypeScript. Those are our kind of three major tools, three major, I guess, framework infrastructure components. Mongo is the database. If you have a website that ultimately stores data, right? Something where you purchase, something where you have users. That's a very important part of storing data, is the users part. Pretty much as soon as you have users, you know you need a database. And that's what Mongo is. Mongo is a database. It's where you can store your data. And there, just like a spreadsheet, you create users, you create relationships. Pretty much if you've ever taken like information technology in college, this is how you build an information technology system. You have a database, and then you start reporting the data. This is what majority of this cloud infrastructure lives on, right? Everywhere you go and make an account, that probably has a database. Then once you edit your code, you take it to GitHub. GitHub, great platform, stores all the code, but it's also a community. If you want to open source your project and get people to help you fix it, help you add things, you could do that. You can open source this project though. This project is a private piece of code that we bought. But any other project, feel free to open source it. You can go to Ross's account. You'll see all sorts of open source projects. You can go to my account, whatever me and Sharon built in the last half a year of our space, you can find it there and try to build. And then Vercel, Vercel is the greatest. It's free hosting. It's pretty much a free way for you to put up your website as long as it's a certain framework. It's what we call serverless, right? cPanel, you get a server. Vercel, completely serverless. You never really can live edit files. There's always this push and build process. But the benefit of that, it's extremely fast, extremely SEO friendly, and virtually unhackable. So that's a good summary, I would say, of the framework overall and the flow that you should be having on your mind whenever you're working with this project. Edit the code, push to GitHub, then redeploy on Vercel, rebuild on Vercel. Okay, now Ro, what were you gonna say?
I just like big pictures or nutshelling it. I mean, so basically, what we really did was sort of pick up from last week's. We were able to do Stripe, but then it went to a 404. So essentially, what we were really trying to do last night was, hey, be able to subscribe, verify that, confirm that. Yep, they can subscribe monthly. And then there, if they subscribe, then they can see the videos. If you're not a subscriber, you cannot see the videos. So sort of getting that all in sync. So you're a subscriber, yay, you get to see the videos. If you're not, no, you cannot.
Right, and that's a very big part of a SaaS. That's what a SaaS is, right? It's a software as a service. You pay for the software, you have access to it. You don't pay for the software, you don't have access to it. It's right. That's perfect. And the way we integrated it was actually quiet. It was almost there, and it was the complex way, because ultimately Stripe, you can just use Stripe links. But that's actually something I saw. If you guys are familiar with Bolt, the platform where you can chat with AI and build an app, they recently had a live stream where they were integrating Stripe, but they integrated payment links, which is you give a Stripe link to a button, pretty much. But of course, it's not as complex as this, where we have to manage the users. We have to make sure that that user paid for the subscription and that subscription is still active. That's the important part. Because what if they cancel the next month? Well, then if you don't have code that takes care of making that subscription false, then your users are just going to keep having access without paying. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're thinking of just the simple payment for a SaaS. A lot of things that are, I would say, logically structured rather than technically structured. Because the technical part, the AI can help you. You can go to the AI and say, my platform has Stripe, help me integrate it. But what it's not going to understand is the nuances of, okay, if the subscription in Stripe runs out, have the webhook listen to that event and then make changes to the database. The AI is actually going to have a lot of issues understanding the logical implements, the logical, I guess, implications of having a Stripe integration. Now, AI John, do you have your hand up, or is that just my phone?
No, I was just going to add that the one thing that Ross made very clear is not to edit in GitHub, edit in Visual Studio Code, because you can't change it and it can mess things up. And then the other thing is, will eventually this site, I didn't realize that Vercel is almost hacking free. Can that site be on Vercel forever, or are we going to move it over to the cPanel? Can you host
No.
a site on Vercel forever?
So this is where Vercel is serverless. So for the most part, you could host a website as long as it's a certain framework, right? You can't host anything Python. You can't host anything PHP. But things like HTML, Next.js, Node, Vue, React, you can have all of that in Vercel. Vercel, the way our app works, just so we're clear, make a note of this somewhere. This app is front end only, right? We did not build any backend, because if you think about a backend, that is actually taken care of by Mongo and cPanel. You know, for something like a chat app, you know, they have this term GPT wrapper. A GPT wrapper's backend is OpenAI. A GPT wrapper doesn't have a backend. It's all front end. So we just built a front end to essentially show people our videos from cPanel, right? And there's an extra layer of database there to organize all the data. And your point about making changes in Visual Studio Code, you're absolutely right about that, because if you think about it, every time you make a change in GitHub, you have to update the repo, right? And essentially, if you want to edit 10 files and then update, you can't do that in GitHub.com. You have to do it in a code editor like VS Code, or really any other code editor. There's others out there. You can look into it. You know, people on Mac have Xcode. There's I keep forgetting. There's other ones out there too, like Notepad Plus or whatever it is. But yeah, if you want to edit multiple files, if it's not a small change, if it's a change that requires more than one file, definitely use a code editor. And then you have to push to GitHub. Don't forget, you have to use GitHub Desktop to then commit your change and push to GitHub.com. And that push to GitHub.com will trigger a rebuild and redeployment. By the way, I totally forgot. Because I switched computers, I essentially start with a new project every time. Okay, so yeah, yesterday we finished our integration for Stripe. Now I'm going to try it out. Does anybody else have anything to add? And I'm pretty much going to go from taking the repository from yesterday that Ross shared with all of you. Unfortunately, or actually, I can share my repository with you. So if anybody still needs the repo, just throw it in Slack, give me your GitHub username, and I'll invite you. But I'm going to start with Ross's repository from last night. If we go to, let's see, let's refresh this. You see that there's a branch called payment accounts with changes from 16 hours ago, which is last night. Maybe a little bit longer than last night. And that's what I'm going to start with. Yeah, this is the one updated 13 hours ago. So I'm going to try to work on the latest one. Some cool things here, by the way. If you guys are exploring GitHub, if you're watching the live stream, check this out. This repo, number one, it gives you a link so you can check out what it looks like. All right, so this is a live link from Vercel, from Ross's account. It automatically links all this, by the way, once you connect it to Vercel. And if you go over here to deployments, you can actually see the live deployments and whether they worked, when they were redeployed, what was updated. So this is the beauty of GitHub, is you're able to see these changes And if you ever make a mistake, you can go back, right? So if I go to the project and you see there's 19 commits, I can see each one. And I can see exactly what was changed, what was updated, what was added. And you can go back to each one and see the differences. This is the beauty of GitHub. This is why we use GitHub, is because it has this version control that's kind of unmatched.
I have a quick question.
What's up?
So tips, or it's sort of an obvious question, but sort of tips on why and when you would branch.
Okay, good question. So I see why you would ask that question, because once you look at this commit table, you realize that you can just go back to your changes. Well, you would branch when it has like, I guess you want to create a checkpoint for yourself. For example, we try to bundle our updates to 1 per week, maybe 2 per week for Pixio. So we branch, every week if we made a lot of changes. And I guess you also branch if you want to differentiate between beta and what's live. So if you have something that's live, if you keep pushing changes to it, you're going to keep pushing it to the live website. But if you want to have first a development build, that's where you would branch and now have a different version. That's development version. Because right now, if payment account is the branch that you see when you go to this link, flixroam.vercel.app, you don't want to keep pushing changes to it and constantly rebuilding. Your users are going to be a little disoriented, right? Because you keep seeing more and more changes every hour if you're a type of company that codes and pushes changes every hour. So that's where you want to start branching. So the end user, because at the end, you always got to remember who the end user is. It's the people who are going to see your videos, go to the platform. And if you don't want the end user to keep seeing those updates, that's when you would branch. And then once you're done with that particular update, you switch the live branch to the updated branch, and then you keep going to the next branch. So I guess it's whenever you're ready for people to see these changes is when you would branch and put it in a different branch so you could test it live. And typically you want to test your changes live on Vercel first before making it the so-called production branch. Right? Production equals end user sees it. Production equals everybody who goes to your website will see it. Development is something that only you and the development team sees. And you can actually set all of that in Vercel. So you can set a specific branch for development. You can set a specific branch for live. I'll show you guys how to do that as well, because I'm going to have to do it in my Vercel right now.
Thank you. That's very helpful to keep in mind, because you're basically taking little snapshots along the way and then also considering live versus testing, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where if you think to yourself, okay, this is the moment in time that I want to go back to instantly, rather than, go to commits, search through commits, look at the merges, and you're just like, oh man, this is a lot of work. Because we've made mistakes like that where we have to go back, something doesn't work, we have to go back in code and figure out what was pushed by who and why the issue occurred. We actually had to do that recently with Pixio, and once we figured it out, we had like an issue that would brick an account when in development. If you're like locally developing, because the way TypeScript works, sometimes type mismatch causes errors. Even though TypeScript extremely secure, sometimes you'll run into errors, a little bit hard to work with. But yeah, we had to go back in commits. We had to go back weeks, if not like almost months in commits to find the little one line of code. So yeah, whenever you want to go back in time to this specific part that you're editing, make a branch, but don't go too crazy, even though you could. Like Pixio, we have, I would say, a branch every week because we update it, like a bulk update every week.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so here you could fork this, by the way. This is a project that Rush shared with everybody. I see that 10 of you already forked it. I think I can even see who forked it if I click view existing forks. Yeah, this looks like everybody I'm seeing. Cool. I also forked it. I'm somewhere here on the list. And the way I'm going to start is by pulling this down to my Visual Studio Code and to my GitHub desktop. So that's going to be step one for me always, whenever I start with a project. Unless I'm starting with 0. But if you're starting with a GitHub project, which if you have the time during that week that we don't have ITT, I highly recommend you go to GitHub and find something to build. They have so many projects that are open source that you can explore. Now for local path, what I highly recommend you do is if you're on Windows, make sure there's no OneDrive in your local path because that will create issues. And if you're on Mac, make sure there's no iCloud in a local path because that will always and also create issues. So for me, it just goes to my documents on my C drive, straight to my hard drive. Just something for you to be aware of, something that we have encountered in the last 6 seasons is OneDrive and iCloud cause issues. Typically, if you're on Mac and you're creating on your desktop, it probably will go to iCloud. The same for Windows, unless you have that turned off, but sometimes it turns on automatically. Hey, John, you have a question?
Yeah, how do you search through GitHub? Like, let's say if you want to build a website or define something that you want to build, how do you search through it, and what are the parameters besides making sure it's not on iCloud?
Great question. So the way to search through GitHub is, here's my GitHub screen. Let me just go to the GitHub homepage. I go to github.com, and what are you interested in searching? For example,
I guess paid website or something.
okay, so let's think about what involves, now that you've gone through a season and you know how payments typically work on these websites. Let's think about what's involved in a pay website. So Stripe, right? Then maybe Next.js, and then payment. And here you're going to get a few things now, and you can sort by language. So this season we kind of learned JavaScript and TypeScript, so you can focus on those. So we'll go for TypeScript. That's the more common one nowadays. And here you get all sorts of projects. Now there's best match and there's recently updated. So let's go to recently updated because maybe you want something that still receives updates every day. Okay, here we get some interesting things. Now, typically, GitHub is very good at keeping the code clean. But some things you want to be aware of is, of course, stars. If the project has a lot of stars, so if we switch this to most stars, that means it's a popular project. People are using it. And wow, interestingly enough, the first thing is AI SaaS. And yeah, so these are all the open source projects that people share. You can go to any one of them. So I'm going to go to this one that's been updated 23 days ago. 1.2 thousand people started. So 1,200 people started this. It's TypeScript. It has Stripe. I can read about it. I can visit the link, see what it is. So this is an e-commerce website in Next.js 15, React 19. So this is latest e-commerce. I'm assuming it uses ShadCN by the looks of it. And then you can read about it, right? So a lot of these developers, they put in the time to actually have a decent README file where you can learn about the product. You can learn about the code. It tells you how to get started. It tells you what it is. It has documentation, which is amazing, even though it doesn't seem to be working. You can learn about the framework. So here we have Neon Postgres. So different kind of database, Postgres instead of Mongo. It uses Stripe. It uses Clerk. So these are all the different things you can learn about and start connecting. These are all the things, by the way, we did already learn about in seasons 1 through 5. So these are all the things we actually did come around to touching. And it tells you how to run it. And that's about it. You can just fork it. So if I wanted this project, I can click fork. I'll be one of 225 people with this template. I can fork all the branches or just the main one. I'll focus on the main one because that's the default. That's the latest. And once you fork it, you can pull it down to your GitHub desktop, start developing it, start filling out the env file. But yeah, to answer your specific question, the way you search is think about what you want, think about what it involves, because as you can see in GitHub, it will search by name, description, and README. So if the README mentions those things, then it will show up in your search. And then you can specify which language. So if you were to search something that's, let's say, you want to build on top of OpenAI or Gemini, I would say Gemini. Gemini is a little bit more unique. So I'm going to say Gemini, and then I want it to be a Python app. I'm going to go down, look for Python. First one. Typically, the most popular one is the first one in the filters. And then most stars. So the most stars thing is this foreign project. You could trust it. You know, we've worked with foreign code before. The only issue is translating. So if you can translate, I'll say effectively, then you could go for that project. But otherwise, just read the description. See if that's what you want to play around with. And you can see a lot of these projects are extremely popular. Thousands and thousands of stars, probably thousands of forks. Yeah, for example, this Chinese project, almost 10,000 forks. That's kind of crazy. It's a Python project. I think this is a ChatGPT on WeChat. That's pretty cool. I see why that would be popular. WeChat, one of the most popular chatting platforms in the world. But yeah, does that answer your question? There's a lot of projects here, so you will run into a lot of things. You can just start forking them. So I can just go to this one, Aiden AI, fork it, have it in my account, and then get around to it. You can start keeping a list. You can watch the projects, so you get updates.
Is there a forum or someplace you could go, hey, I'm a new coder, I got this fork kit, like a place to ask questions or something, or?
Probably, but typically, this is your forum. So check this out. I go to this Aider project, and look, there's issues. People have tasks here. They post about the issues that the code has. They post about the fixes that have been implemented. So this is your forum. You can post here and ask a question. Look, there's closed. So those are open issues. Here's all the closed issues that have been fixed already, that people spoke about, that I guess the forum, what are they called? The forum string has been closed. That's a good question. So this GitHub is also a community where you can actively talk to developers. We do this all the time. If we find a problem in the code, we'll make what's called a pull request so that the creator can then get that update. If we have a question, we'll open up an issue here. This is equivalent of forum.
So the reason why people make it public is they have a whole bunch of people helping them test it, basically. It makes it a better product.
Not tested, fix it. Tested, you can just post a link, right? I can go to X, I can post a link and say, here, test out my new app. But to fix it, you have to put it on GitHub and make it public so that the people can start contributing to it. That's the open source part. If you notice, most of these projects that are public, like this one, they will have a license. And that license will tell you exactly what you can do with this project and what open source means on GitHub. And if you go to your GitHub profile, you can actually see this is like the commit table. Right, this is when you start pushing commits and what you've done. So if you start helping people like every day, you just spend coding, then you're gonna start seeing this table fill out. Even though, weirdly enough, I think, I guess there's just some days you commit more. There you go. That's the 2025. Not too bad. Okay. Let me actually set this project up. So give me a second. It's paused. I don't even know if this is the right one. I haven't been in here in a minute. Pretty sure this is actually not even the right account. Now, these are the main things that we need. Is we need our database, we need Stripe, and we need some place to host our videos and thumbnails. And then we can start editing this code. So I have it in my GitHub desktop. And if you start from here, you can just open in Visual Studio Code. Now, this is a Next.js project. And typically, the way you start is by having an env file. We need an env because we have all these other things that connect to our project. So new file .env, all lowercase. It's going to have this little gear next to it. And it's going to be grayed out because it's usually never committed to GitHub. So you can keep your environment variables private. Because in Vercel, there's a section where you can paste them in where they're secure. Okay, now I'm going to go into Slack, and I'm going to see what I need. I think there's a few values that I need to get from here. So I need my Stripe. And what you should do is leave notes for yourself. So you can make a comment by using a hashtag. I'm going to say hashtag API keys for Stripe. And you'll see the hashtags in the comments. They're going to be green in Visual Studio Code. Let me also make this bigger. Then we have our database key. There's actually a few things here that we'll need. So I'll leave some more comments. We'll do next auth. This is how people log in. And comments are good for yourself and any other developers that come to work with your product.
Are you doing something on the other monitor?
Other monitor? No, I'm doing it here. I'm doing it on this screen. I'm just in Slack copying these.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so some things you can set up here. You can set up GitHub sign-in. So OAuth providers means other ways you can sign in besides just password and email. And you can set up a Google sign-in. Probably not going to go through those. I don't think we'll have time. Next auth. So this is how you secure your login. So you want to create some sort of a unique 32 character key for these. So your passwords are up to date. And then this is our database URL. Now, for me, I need to change my password because I don't remember my password. And it looks like this is paused. So let's connect to MongoDB for VS Code. That's going to give me this string. Actually, I have it in Vercel. I think I launched it in Vercel at some point. Yeah, cool.
So I just pulled the file from GitHub into Visual Studio Code Editor, and my
Yeah, you
EV
probably don't need to do that because you already have it, right? I'm doing this because I don't have the project on my computer. You have this from yesterday. You don't need to do it again.
well, I just want to test if I know what I'm doing, and I don't see on the EVN. I don't see my Stripe code and stuff. Is it not in GitHub, or how is it working without it being there?
It is not in GitHub. It is going to be in Vercel. Right? We don't put env in GitHub because that's not a secure way to have your variables, especially if your repository is public, because then everybody will see your secret keys and be able to hack your platform. We have it in Vercel, if you remember, in settings, environment variables. Now let's see what else. So now I need my Stripe keys. There's actually one more that I need, is Stripe webhook secret. Stripe webhook. And Russ actually said, if you guys saw on Slack, that if you go to the repository, that he updated the README. So you can go to the README and you can find all the variables in here. If you need to update your env with the right variables. But again, here's the thing. When you're doing it again with the same project, it's going to start getting confusing because you already have your changes. And if you start pulling it again from Stripe, creating a new folder, now you have multiple copies of that project, and now it's confusing which one you're working in. So what I recommend is don't do the same project again because it'll just get messy, right? Because it's already connected on your computer somewhere. This is just a review. You don't have to go along. You can just sort of watch and ask questions. It's actually not even this account. So now I need my Stripe. Now for Stripe, you can create a new one in test mode instantly. You don't need to go live with your Stripe just yet. If you're in test mode, you'll have this giant orange ribbon on top that says test mode. And what we need right now is 3 variables. Publishable key that corresponds to publishable key in our env. It starts with PK, so you're aware. PK means publishable key. Then secret key corresponds to Stripe secret key. Starts with SK. And you know it's test mode because it's SK test and PK test. Once it's live, it's not going to have that test in there.
In Stripe, do you only get one sort of test area? Like, you're creating the new businesses, so you don't get a test for each business you open.
You do. So if you go to Stripe and you create a new account, like if you see I have like 10, 15 in here, once you create a new one, you get a new set of keys, you get a completely new area, you have to get verified again. But that's a good practice. So every new business, every new website you create, I highly recommend using a separate Stripe because then you're able to track MRR, ARR, you're able to track all the things separately. And then also you get, of course, separate testing areas, separate customer portals if you create a new account. As you guys can see, I'm not doing this in the TSI test. TSI test has all sorts of other things. But yeah, if you want a separate area from the previous platform, just make a new account. It's right here where there's a little store icon. And it's just as easy as clicking this create new account button. You will instantly get a new Stripe with that's already in test mode with all the keys working perfectly. Now I need my price ID, and price ID is the product that you create that corresponds to subscription. So if you're building it out and you have, let's say, 3 subscription tiers, then you need 3 price IDs, and you need to figure out how that will work with your code. But you can just go to product catalog and make a new product. So I actually already have a product in here, Netflix subscription. And the price ID, you can click on the price, and it typically in Stripe, the ID of whatever you're in, subscription, price, product, payment, whatnot, it's always right here in the top right. Okay, now for webhook secret, I can't have a webhook secret in test mode unless I'm either using Stripe CLI, which most of us don't have, or my website is live. Because at the end of the day, if you guys remember from last night, we created a Stripe webhook. And a webhook is a script in your project. So if I go to Pages, API, Payment, webhook. Oh, I think this is the old one because this has a route. Route.ts. You're going to notice that this is the webhook that Stripe needs to read, but it can't read this webhook until your website is live, right? Your website needs to be in Vercel so it can go to that link and essentially listen to all the events mentioned here. So unless you're using Stripe CLI, which works in your command line, or unless you already have this website live with a webhook, it's not going to work. Right? That's why you guys are getting issues when after paying locally, the database doesn't update. Because if you read in this webhook, you'll notice what it does. And check this out. Let's see. Actually, I don't see it in this webhook. Oh, right here. You see that once transaction is successful, it updates your database, successfully updated user in DB, and the changes is subscribed to true. And then in this webhook, you can record other things too. You can add in the database, you can extract from the metadata subscription ID, you can extract customer ID, and then you can reuse those things within your application. Let's actually see this update. Right. Webhook is webhook.ts. There it is. Okay. So now, as you can see, I have all sorts of errors because I just got this project. And whenever you just get a project from GitHub, you need to install all of the packages. So I'm going to run npm install. And that should fix all of my errors. Because if you hover over it, typically, when it says can't find module, that means you haven't installed it. It's not in your code. And just so you can put 2 and 2 together here, whenever you run npm install, you're going to notice you have this new folder that's grayed out called node modules. Right? These are all of these little packages that it's installing, like Next, Stripe, and whatever else it needs to use, like ShatCN if you're using that. And there you go. All my errors are gone. Okay, now this website, it's going to work. I can run npm run dev. That's how you start a development server. But a few things we learned throughout the season is that if you're on Mac and you're unable to access certain permissions, the database might not connect for you. So you can't sign up and you can't log in. So that's one thing we learned this season. So when that happens to you, you need to take this up to Vercel. And then Vercel is going to get rid of your permissions issue because at that point, it's no longer on your Mac. And then Vercel is also going to fix your Stripe issue because then your Stripe is now able to actually listen to that webhook and interact with that webhook. Okay, let's see. I should be able to sign up, and if I can, or even log in. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's because I'm not subscribed. So far it's working, and now the issue we were at is that, well, since the webhook isn't listening, it's not changing the subscription. So let's actually put this in Vercel, right? So for me, the way I have to put it in Vercel is I have to start fresh. Because this is not the same project in my Vercel. This is a different project. So I'm going to add new. I'm going to start with a project. And immediately, here is the latest project that I worked on. It's called Flix. I'm going to import. These should all be fine. And now I need to add my environment variables. And in my env, all I really have to do is just copy the whole thing and paste it in. And it's going to bring in all of my keys. And for now, you can set the webhook secret and you can set next auth URL. So once these are deployed, we can change that up and set it up properly. For now, I'm just going to put whatever in there. But everything else, like Stripe secret key, price ID, publishable key, your secret JWT secret, and database URL, those should all be real and set up. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this is going to be a test. If you're going live, what I recommend is either create a new Vercel project or you're going to have to change these keys based on whether it's development or live. And Vercel allows you to do that. Once it deploys, you'll see how Vercel allows you to manage your keys for different type of deployments. And then you guys will also see how I change branches. Because originally, when it deploys the main branch. Unless there's something that routes it to the payment branch. But I don't think there is. Oh, it is. Payment account. But I'll show you guys where to change that anyway. We'll be in that area. Any questions so far?
Were you
If you do that, oh, what's up? Go ahead, AI John.
so I just did a search about in the AI about what Vercel is, and so we're in the free plan. If you get the paid plan, is it easier to manage, or is it just about volume of traffic?
It's mostly about volume of traffic and the things that you're doing in a paid plan. You guys will not benefit from the paid plan simply because the same timeout issues that you have on a free plan, you will also have on a paid plan. And then paid plan, even though you pay that $20 a month, there is still certain things that are pay as you go that are pretty important in Vercel. So Vercel typically is mostly good for having these front ends, like the Netflix platform. And once you optimize your Netflix platform, it can live in Vercel. There's a lot of great projects that live in Vercel. You just got to think of Vercel equals a really nice front end, because at the end of the day, your files are in cPanel, your database is in Mongo. None of that is actually in Vercel, because none of that is actually free in Vercel.
So eventually, you want it if you want it more permanent, you can move the whole thing over to cPanel. but you would leave the front end
I
on
would say
Vercel?
you want to keep the front end part in Vercel because Vercel is the best place for your front end. But if you're exceeding those limits of Vercel, then you have something like Runway. cPanel is not going to do Node too well. cPanel is mostly for things like PHP. So Node, not the best thing to host on cPanel. Vercel does it much better. But cPanel is really good for things that are heavy. This is not so heavy. This doesn't even have a backend that you need to host all that much. You're just hosting the files. But yeah, Vercel, you can get far with Vercel. You know, if you think about Netflix itself is on Vercel, actually, the front end of Netflix. And their backend is on AWS, all of those videos. Now, check this out. Some things to keep in mind here when you're in Vercel. This deployment link, this is a unique link for each deployment. So each time Vercel rebuilds and redeploys, this link will change. So this is not a good link to put in your env, right? Because this link constantly changes. The link that's under domains is the link you want to start adding everywhere because that's a permanent link that you're able to edit and control. So if you add your own domain, you can change that as well. What's up, Dan?
Yeah, just a real quick question about organization in a lot of this, because we're going through so many different services and apps and having, installing these little packages. I'm just curious about what kind of protocols and procedures and, cleaning habits do you guys have at TSI that we can start learning from? Because I'm, 7 seasons in, I'm getting a little cluttered, let's say, in a lot of these different applications, and knowing what I can delete and what I can't. And so that's just, if it's not relevant right now for folks, totally cool. I just wanted to get that into the ether.
I would say maybe going by like organizing everything by category and what it's used for. Like, for example, Mongo is a database. Other things that we use for database is Neon. We've used Supabase. We could have used Firebase. So you would group those two together. Then cPanel, Vercel, Runway, you would group those together because that's hosting. And then things like Namecheap, GoDaddy, Google Domains you group together because that's domain management. So just going by group, and then eventually when you yourself want to build something from scratch, you would say, okay, I know this and this and this really. Like I know Neon, Vercel, and Next.js really well. I'm gonna work on those. So then that will help you as well once you realize what each one does and how you can group them.
Dan, I don't know if it helps you at all. You can use like Obsidian, sometimes your Notions doc also, and color coding them. How I did it in my own notebook is it's kind of like a mind map, right? So the easiest way that I could do it, in addition to adding bookmarks that are specifically for in a file that says here's season 1, here's season 2, with my bookmarks, or not my bookmarks, my passwords also, because it gets way out of control because you're thinking to yourself, what does this do? How does this play into my workflow? Because I'll tell you, the things that we used in earlier seasons, we've learned different things that are far more, in tune with my own learning style. And I think that's one of the things that is so powerful about coming in season to season to season, is that you'll understand which things speak to you better. Sharon has also mentioned when you use different large language models, you kind of gravitate towards one or the other because of what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. Some of the things that we did earlier on, you know, you have to go through the rigors to understand how to do it. But after you understand how to do it, you're like, yeah, I'm going to staff that one out. It's like when you change your own oil, right? You change your own oil one time and then you're like, it is totally worth paying somebody else $20 to do it or $30 to do it, right? That is exactly what this is. But Obsidian or any of the kind of mind mapping tools are worth their weight in gold because it's an instant visual and you can see exactly where things, you know, kind of suss out and sort out. But you know, if color coding helps you, or if you have a symbol because you know colors aren't your thing, you know, figure out what your sweet spot is, and then you know you can classify them. But keeping a clean work area is really important because otherwise you're going to have all the streams cross and you're going to open up like I was talking to Cash Money Kev behind the scenes where you had an old GitHub or an old, you know, something, and then you all of a sudden are like, wait a second, why isn't this working? It's because you're tapping into previous season or previous work, and then the whole thing is erased. It's just mind numbing and irritating. So, you know, help your future self out by leaving those breadcrumbs. I did see that what comes to mind immediately came up and had her hand up. How are you, my love?
I'm fine. Good morning or good afternoon. I have three quick questions. My first question is, did you say I was sure to not put the EMV file in your GitHub um, repository? Did I hear that correct?
So if your repository is eventually going to be public,
Uh-huh.
like if you're gonna open source your repository, then yeah, don't put it in there. Just because then you're exposing your entity. If it's private, you're fine.
Okay.
But if you're going public eventually and open sourcing and people are going to see it, of course, you don't want to expose your variables and pretty much like let the hackers know how to access your app.
Can you put it in and then take it out? I asked because I think
Of course, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
My second question is for the recap was for week 3, the sound eventually goes out. Is that the same one? And I don't remember the YouTube site, but I think before
Yeah,
I was listening to
yeah.
YouTube.
For week 3, I think it might already be on YouTube. I think everything up to week 4 should be on YouTube. I think I've updated that. I'll drop a link for you guys in Slack right now.
Okay.
Let me go through this, and you'll have the latest one.
When I listened to it on YouTube before and I forgot the site, the sound would also goes out like after 30, 40 minutes, and for the rest of the recap, like the sound is gone.
I had the same
Yeah.
issue.
I think the thing with that is it's probably X like just glitching out. So you could always
What I ended up
go.
doing, I ended up opening up the X, you know, the whole space,
Yeah,
you know how
yeah,
that
that's a
plays,
good way.
and syncing it
That's a
in
good
that.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can actually go to X and then you could go to the replies. So if you go to the replies on X for the recap, what I personally do and what I like to do is I always post the link to the live stream in the recap, so you'll see it there. And then you can keep the audio playing and just watch the recap. It'll all be on the same page.
Thank you for that. And my last and final question is, I'm going back to the subscription. Say, for example, like if you know how with actual Netflix that they give you a lot of subscriptions, they kind of give you like, okay, we tried your card, we tried your card. Like it's kind of like a drip, like maybe a 5 email sequence over a period of days before they finally cancel. If we wanted to do that, do we just like put that in the code or is that strictly email? Like how would that work?
So the way that would typically work is you could do it with Stripe. Stripe typically does like a few tries. I think it's by default tries 3 times. And in terms of emailing, you could implement something where you use a different API. Um, I think Stripe also gives you invoices, so that's really nice. And then if you set up the branding properly in Stripe, it'll look like a proper store. You could also actually build that, but coding that is a little bit tough and connecting it to Stripe. So relying on Stripe for that makes it much easier. If you go to Stripe and you maybe search for some of these settings, you might be able to find it. But let's see. I'm gonna look for subscription. here we go. Settings, billing, subscriptions, and emails. And then you see things like, okay, send a reminder 7 days before the end of trial if you have a trial. And then you could choose where they can go. And so if you select Stripe, they already have everything set up for you. You have templates here that you can edit. You have customer portal that you have to set up, and this is where the user can go and then manage their subscription instead of you having to build an entire portal for them in your app. But yeah, all of that can be found in Stripe. Anything money payment related, you can go to Stripe and most likely find it.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, now let me keep setting this up because there's, I think, one more thing that we really have to do here. And that's fix our variables and fix our production environment, so to say. Now, check this out, guys. In your Vercel, of course, we have the main link, right? For me, the main link, anything under the domains, whether it's your own domain or the Vercel given domain, is going to be the main link. And make sure you're on the project instead of a deployment. That's another important part because the project is the overall versus deployment is every time you push to Vercel. So let's check this out. This is the main domain. For me, it's Flix 10 Vert Vercel app. I don't need the auth part, but this I do need to set in my variables. And in Vercel, variables are located in settings, environment variables, or you can access it through environments. So if you're in environments, I want to edit production, but as you can see, there's development and preview as well. So you can set those up and then have several different versions. So development version or preview version, you can be having like a test branch where you're testing all the changes, and then production is what the end user, the person who goes to your website and watches the video, eventually sees. So you can have like several versions running simultaneously, just like we do with Pixio. We have a beta Pixio and we have a live Pixio. Now, if you want to change the branch tracking, you can change to whatever branch it is that you're using as your main branch. And then every time changes are made there, it'll rebuild and the person who accesses your website will see it. Now, in here, in my environment variables, if you just started, I just deployed this project fresh. I have to edit next auth URL because it's no longer local. It's actually now using this Vercel link. If you change it to your domain, there's a few things you will need to change. This is one of them, next auth URL. Then you need to change the Stripe webhook URL in your Stripe as well. So it listens to a different link. So if you ever change the domain, make sure to keep that in mind. And kind of remember or note down wherever you have this link if you ever need to change it. And then you can redeploy. And now signing in should work for me once it redeploys. I'm surprised it took them that long to add that little toaster, so to say, that pops up to redeploy. Right, now we need to set up the webhook and the webhook secret. Because now that we have our link, we have our main domain, we can access that little script, that webhook.ts script that we made for the webhook. So this is how Stripe actually connects to our app beyond just those keys, is this webhook that can run different events. And I know they moved it, so it'll be for developers on the bottom left. All the way on the bottom left in your menu in Stripe, there's developers. Then I'm going to go to webhooks. Looks like I already have one set up. I'm just going to add a new one. Make sure it has HTTPS. Whenever it says URL, it'll always have HTTPS. And then we need to, add to the link. So let's see where it is. Actually, let's see if it's somewhere here. All right, now you know the link because it's in your code. So let's take a look at our code here. We can go to Pages, API, then Payment, and we see webhook.ts in here. So our link will be whatever our URL is, /API /payment /webhook. So you kind of have to adapt the structure, this what they call location in your script. So let's go to the endpoint URL. Let's fill that out. So it's gonna go /API /payment /webhook, and that is where your webhook script is located. If you look at your code, that's how you can connect the two in your brain. Or if you ever pull a project and you don't know where the link is, you don't know what to put for endpoint URL, you can find it in your script. So if you're ever stuck, wherever it is in your script, that's going to be the structure for your URL. In terms of events, since we're just testing, you can listen to all the events. But typically, a good practice would be to know exactly what events you're listening for. But for testing purposes and for figuring out, you can connect them all. And then once you figure out which events to listen for, get rid of the ones you don't need. You gotta scroll down, add endpoint, and this will give you your signing secret. So signing secret equals to your Stripe webhook secret in your environment variables. So we'll need to redeploy again. So we'll go to settings, look for this variable, Stripe webhook secret, and we'll change it to whatever Stripe gives us. And we'll redeploy again. This is a pretty agile app, so it redeploys within a minute, looks like. Although it didn't look like it redeployed. Have to redeploy it manually then. Production, yep. Cool. Now from here, this should work. We'll test it out. We'll see if we see those Stripe events, if our database updates. I'm gonna make an account in the meantime. Okay, nice. Now we're hit with this subscription wall, subscription paywall, so to say. Huh. Oh, I guess one of the deployments isn't showing up here. So I think it's redeploying, but queue this one up. There you go. Somehow it did redeploy. We'll check out this link. It should log us in because it has cache. And now this should work because we have this connected to the proper product ID. So subscribe and support. That opens up our Stripe. And remember, all of these things, the colors, you can set that up in Stripe. So in Stripe, you can go in here and you can, let's maybe look for theme. Okay, nothing in theme, colors. I think it's just settings. Branding. This is where it's called branding. This is where you can set up all the colors, put your logo in, customize it to where it looks different to what you want it to be. Right. All the payment stuff, all the customer stuff is managed by Stripe. All you're doing in here is restricting access. Now, if you're testing out, Stripe test credentials is just this card that's forward to continuously. For these, you can put whatever you want. Just got to make sure that the format is right. And once you subscribe, in test mode, it's a little bit slow. So this might take 20, 30 seconds. In live, it's a bit better. It's a bit faster. But once this works, we should get redirected and we should see all of our content. Nice. Payment successful, cool. I think we also created an account page. Yep, says your payment successful. Cool. Let's see. Now let's check out some things here. You can check out if it works by going to your webhook and seeing what the webhook did if you're ever troubleshooting. So here we have our flicks. Doesn't look like it propagated. It might need another redeployment, or we might need to wait for the new redeployment, just because I think it was doing a few deployments at once. Oh, it needs a login and log out. Interesting. Let's do that.
What are some other options besides logging in and logging out?
I guess going through your code and fixing it, because there's ways to update it. Could just be like a Mongo thing. I think I need to clear cache because I think that's a login button. Just gonna go to a different browser because Edge not the best.
And isn't this the handshake thing as well?
Isn't the what?
Isn't this sort of like going back to the handshake kind of thing? So I subscribe and then it pops me out. Then I guess you need, oh yeah, this person has a subscription. So you sort of have to go back, I guess.
No, because what you can do is you can record, let's say, subscription ID, right? So in the webhook, after successful checkout, you can record subscription ID, and then you can create a hook that essentially checks live. It uses like Stripe.js or something like that and checks live if this subscription ID is active in Stripe. And then it should work properly.
So basically you would pass that to like a new page to go watch or something. Yeah.
Not necessarily. So what I'm saying is you can create something to, let's say, just wrap the front page, right? And instead of having the video, Um, you can just sort of wrap it. You can still have the top bar, and just this will be wrapped and blocked with like gray or something, or just completely different part of the page, right? Because the way whenever you can create a webhook, you can have two different components. You can have a component that's like for subscribed people, and you can have a component that's for people who don't have a subscription, right? And you can create a script that will check, not in a database, it will check in Stripe, right? It will check in Stripe whether or not that subscription is active. And then that way, instead of relying on the database being updated, you rely on Stripe being updated in real time. Because as soon as that, let's say they go to customer portal and cancel the subscription, and they're like, yes, cancel my subscription now, instead of at the end of the month, they'll lose access. It will be like instant. If you recall to season one, that's kind of how the season one template worked. Is we essentially said if if the subscription is active for these price IDs, you can restrict it for like a specific price ID. Then allow access to this page. For example, you can go back to season one repo if it's somewhere there on my account, and see what I'm talking about. It's like an extra script that you add to your page
Thank you.
that runs in the back end.
Yeah.
That's the important part, is for it to run in the back end, because whatever you run in the front end in Next.js, it's just exposed at that point. It's not very secure. So it runs in like the server side of Next.js. But yeah, it does work for us. Looks like it's just my cache on that page because it's Edge. Do you guys have any questions? And something to consider. Let's say you want to have multiple tiers. Think about what each tier will encompass. The way Netflix does it is they have a tier that has ads. They have a tier that is right in the middle, but it's just HD. Then they have the ultra tier with 4K. For you can have, okay, restrict this part of the page to a certain subscription, restrict this part of the page to one subscription, or you can even be even more sort of micromanaged and do restrict this video to whether or not a person has bought this video. So you can have individual videos instead of subscriptions, right? You can have one-time purchases instead of recurring. Something to think about. Or you can even have both. Subscribe to even access this website, and then you'll get certain videos that you don't have to pay for, and then you'll get certain videos that are what are called pay-per-view, right? That you have to buy each video, or even a season. Something to consider and how you can build it out. Any questions, guys? I think somebody was going to speak before.
I'll ask another question. So at the beginning of this, you mentioned that you had your own GitHub, and that if we wanted it, what would be the difference between the payment account from Ross and what you have?
I don't think I've said I have my own GitHub for this specific part. I forked this repo just like you guys did at the end of the class today. So there's no difference, zero.
Okay,
Same
my
exact.
bad. I could have sworn you said something like that, but okay, my bad.
But you can go in my account and look at some of the other things we did in other seasons and see kind of like the different SaaS wrappers, so to say, and how Stripe works there to get some inspiration. You could even take entire projects and just give it to AI and say, I want to do the same thing with Stripe that it does with subscription or something like that.
Could you walk through one of those, like maybe from season one, that subscription one? Like grab that one and how you would throw it into AI? If we have time.
Sure. Let me think. Let me see my GitHub. Because I'm not exactly, I haven't been through this code, so I don't exactly know what this specific code entails. And it is getting a little bit later and later. So just give me 1 sec. Mm,
It could be anything.
actually, Vercel, just realized, has a new starter. So this is something we've worked with before, maybe in season 4, one of those seasons. And you'll notice that this has Stripe as well. So the easiest way to do this is I personally use Beam. You can upload files straight in there. Let's use the new one.
And if you don't have Beam, you're just doing one at a time or something?
You can. There's plenty of scripts. I think there's one that we shared earlier in the earlier seasons where you can go to a website and just put in the URL, and it'll give you one big file for the entire project. I don't remember it off the top of my head. It's somewhere in Slack. I'm sure you can find it. We've used it. It literally just takes the URL of the GitHub and lets you choose what you want in your file. Now, for me, this is 2 projects, so we'll probably use something like Gemini. Gemini has a lot of context. And I'll go with Flash Experimental or Pro Experimental. Pro, I think, is the newest one. Gemini also, the cutoff for knowledge is much newer than GPT. GPT cuts off like 2 years ago now, and Gemini cuts off about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And let's see, did I download it? I'm gonna download the zip. Oof, Windows, not good. I'll extract it too, because you need the files. And I'm also going to take my files. So first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to greet developer, of course. Make sure this model is running, it's working. And then I'm going to say, here is my project. It is a Next.js project. Give it some context with TypeScript that uses Mongo and Stripe. And then I'm going to give it my project, the project that I'm starting out with, that I'm working on right now. And when you're typically giving these files, be careful what files exactly you're giving, because I don't want to give things like node modules. I just want to focus, or the .next or .get. I just want to focus on the files that I'm actually able to edit. And the reason I'm using Gemini is because you'll notice that this project is 30K, and then the other project is like 50K context. So with Gemini, you have that much higher 1 million limit. Okay. And then I'm going to say, do you understand how this project works? To get some sort of confirmation that it understands. And Gemini will just eat it all up. I think Flash is a bit faster. So if you go to Flash Experimental It'll be a bit faster. Not too sure about Flashlight. I don't know how good it is. Flash thinking is a little bit different, right? That's their reasoning model, so it's not going to work as well for this large context project. Okay, so it understands, it sees some things in this project, so that's cool. Okay, now we need to ask it about Stripe integration. So what I'm going to say is you need to kind of logistically explain it. I want to add onto the Stripe integration. That's why some knowledge of coding comes in handy here. Because a lot of times AI will look for like the fastest way to a solution instead of the more thought out, scalable way. So from here, you want to say something like, I want to create a hook. Or first, you need to edit, right? So I want to edit the webhook to pass subscription ID and customer ID to the database after a successful checkout. So that's what you would start with in that situation, because those are the things that you need in order to then check whether that subscription is live in Stripe or not. So that subscription ID will cross-reference it, and then the customer ID, good to have if you ever want to search for that customer in Stripe. If you're in your admin panel too, you can actually connect Stripe to your admin panel, add customer ID in there, so it's much easier to find them. And you see how this is a little bit of a technical thing that I'm asking it to do, because this requires you to know a little bit about, okay, well, there's a database. So I'm saying to the database, I could say to Mongo for the user to be more specific after a successful checkout. And then I'm going to add some more, as well as change is subscribed to true. So it kind of knows where it is. This requires you to know the code just a little bit. But these are the things we kind of went over that we've already done. We talked about this last week, and now we're able to kind of integrate that knowledge in here. So then you want that second step, which is actually restricting content, right? And connecting it live. Then you could say, then I want to restrict the content and pages. And at this point, you don't even need the other project. This is just explaining what it does. You can add the other project later if necessary. The content and pages based on whether or not the user, whether or not the subscription is active. And then you have to is active in Stripe. Let's specify in Stripe. And then you could go from here. This will kind of improve your Stripe integration a little bit. And if you want to give it an example, then you could say, here is an example of the official SaaS starter from Vercel. And you can give it this project that we just downloaded, the SaaS starter. I typically exclude files like package lock or pnpm lock, node modules, .next, .get, just because those files are auto-generated. You don't really need them. Okay. And now you can chat. Now it's gonna give you some sort of substantial response on how to integrate this. And what's good about Gemini is it's very good at giving you the full code. You just gotta be careful and make sure that there's that it doesn't change it too much. It doesn't change certain things that you don't want it to change. But it looks like it updates the webhook. There is still some knowledge that's involved for you to be aware of. So just general overall awareness of what's where in your code, what's where in a database, what database you're using. That helps a lot whenever directing what you want out of the AI. And then it's going to walk you through the change. And you'll notice things like hooks. So it creates this hook that requests data from the database and from Stripe, along with some of these other things that you guys already implemented, like is subscribe. And it even recommends some things to improve your security.
Thank you, Alisher. This is very, very helpful. Thank you.
And if you want this, here, I'll export this. Let me make this a JSON. And I'll add this in to the Slack right now. And you guys can continue. That could be your next step in building. But if you guys just want to get started, you can get the latest version from Ross's repo and just connect the variables. And from there, it'll pretty much work for you. Any final questions before we close down the space? Before season 6 ends?
It's crazy. It's ending season 6. Holy smokes, Batman. I'm not seeing any questions, Alisher, but I am seeing a lot of wonderful people in the audience and their shining faces. 6 weeks, you folks have showed up every Wednesday night for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours because a lot of you worked after hours too. And then you came back on Thursday morning to do the cleanup crew, to remember the muscle memory of building and using your AI cohorts to create things that may have been out of your wheelhouse just 6 weeks ago. It has been a tremendous privilege and an honor to ride in co-pilot seat, but also just to be present, to watch your wins, your successes, and your achievements. You're living in an age now where ignorance is a choice. You have every opportunity at your fingertips to become well-rounded Renaissance men, women, and others. You can be anything and you can build anything. If you can think it up, it can be done. And I think about that, those proof of human kind of touch points. You've showed up, you've logged in, you've built something incredible. I hope that each and every one of you are inspired to let it loose out into the wild, right? Take the next steps. um, Collaborate with one another in powerful ways. We say this all the time, that collaboration is the next currency. The people you choose to hang around with are going to be your wealth. That's what's going to happen, folks. If you choose to surround yourself with doers, with dreamers, with innovators, with makers, with people who are relentless about refusing the nomenclature or the label of a noun. They refuse it. They want to be verbs. They want to be doers. They want to have action. You are going to surround yourself with greatness. And by proxy, you will be great too, because you can't help it. That kind of building is contagious. It really is. When you're around folks that do stuff, every waking minute is, I want to build something else. I want to, you know, I want to transfer my skills to others. I want to create something of relevance. I think each and every one of us, it doesn't matter what time zone you're in. Most of us are English speakers native, but not all of us. Many of you are in unfriendly time zones right now. You're future dwellers. Look around you. There's one humanity here. There's something that we all share as humans, and that's mobility. The ability to move, the ability to have action, the ability to change your stars. Every single human has that, folks. Every single human. They all want to be relevant, and they all want to be a story worth retelling. Doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter what background you come from. I can tell you, traveling all around the world, there's something inherently unique about those couple things. Every single human wants to. We all cry the same way. We always, love and have warm and fuzzies. Same. Um, that entrepreneurial mindset, the ability to be relevant, is universal in so many different ways. And you're encapsulating that, folks. You've caught lightning in a bottle and done something really awesome in the past 6 weeks. I just want to remind you, next week is a one and done. It's not the start of season 7. It's just an interesting, we're going to do something cool because we can, not because we have to, right? If you haven't migrated your data, you know what to do. We've been warning you for 3 weeks. If it goes away and it's erased, it's going to be a tough lesson, folks. You're going to have to rebuild it, and it's not going to be fun, but you can. There's always ways around some of our mistakes, as we say. But I just want to congratulate you. Congratulations. Own it. Slide into that accomplishment. You did something awesome. So I wanted to say thank you to Alisher, Nick, and Ross behind the scenes at Tech in Schools and everything that they do. It's not just, teaching the classes, it's also having the collaborations with other companies that are willing to fill our digital backpacks with expensive stuff so that we can play and we can learn and we can acquire new skills and talents and ideas and all of those things that we bring to impact. I also wanted to say thanks to Cash Money Kev. He is relentless on his manning the big chair on Wednesday nights and Thursdays. Luke is also behind the scenes. We see Mattia and we also see Josh Hellman. Each one of those gentlemen have a nobility of purpose, and it's just a tremendous treasure in my world to have these 7 men in my world. I've adopted all of them, the Tech in Schools guys and the Innovators Think Tanks guys. They're an extension of our family, and kind of added to our giant Brady bunch of people that we've kind of smashed together as a pocket family. As you go forward today, if you need anything, you know where to find us. If something goes wonky, go to the Slack channel first, because we don't always check the DMs. But I will leave you with this. Go on to greatness, folks. We'll see you in season 7. You know what? You're capable of building your own dreams. You don't have to wait for somebody else's permission, because you can. Those 3 words are the most powerful 3 words you can say each and every day to yourself. So have a wonderful day, folks. Alisher, did you want to have any final words? And then Cash Money Kev will close us out.
I would just say great job, everybody. I think this season we saw a lot of projects that you guys were very involved with, that you guys completed. And keep working. We're gonna start a new season with a new project, but you can always keep working on the old ones. You can always go back in the other Slacks, find the other projects, and continue your education, even when Ideas Impact is not on, because sometimes we take longer than the 1 week break. So sometimes you get a little bit of a longer break. So you still stay in that learning mood and that learning vibe. You could always go back in time and learn more. And that's besides, my other recommendations. Go on YouTube, build a Next.js website, build a blank website. You'll find all sorts of videos that are hours and hours long that you can use as education for yourself, if that's something you're interested in.
Awesome, guys. I love it, Alisher, and I love you too, Sarah. These guys, along with Nick and Ross, they've truly changed people's lives, guys. and it's every season. I get to see it every season, so I'm super blessed to be a part of this. And like Sarah mentioned last night, it's an insane feeling. It's surreal. Uh, it's hard to put into words, but it makes me feel, to put it simply, it makes me feel good about having what I'm doing right now in life. Because like Josh says, you could be anywhere. You could be watching Netflix or instead of making Netflix, and that's what we just spent 6 weeks doing. So pat yourselves on the back. You guys all deserve it. Every single one of you turned up, and you coded your hands off, your fingers to the bone every night. So I'm truly grateful for everybody, going so hard and finishing their projects up, and continuing to work on the projects, like Alistair said. Uh, and it's also super cool to see when students come back and they pitch their projects that they've updated over the past weeks or months even, and you're just stunned and astonished of how season 6 projects have evolved over the course into the future. Anyways, guys, a last little final note for me: be sure to show up and support your fellow students that are pitching on Saturday in ITT 81. It'll be Alisher, Sharon, and as well as Cyril, guys. So be sure to support them. It's gonna be super cool. And yeah, without further ado, have a great rest of your Thursday. Go throughout the rest of your week, working hard, guys, and innovating your lives, bringing your ideas to impact.